Hello, everybody. Greetings from Nolens, New Orleans, the Big Easy, Crescent City, Nolens. What else is it called? Delta Town. Welcome to another edition of Towers Take Live, brought to you by Marco's Pizza, America's #1 pizza company, as you guys all know. I'm in my hotel room in New Orleans. Haven't been here long. Just got in this morning. It's overcast but warm. There's supposed to be some pretty wicked storms blowing in here a little bit later, which is going to be interesting. I hope you can see and hear me all right. I'm down by the river, not far from the French Quarter. Um, and a little bit later today, we'll be rendezvousing with the team as they fly into Louis Armstrong Airport. We'll be heading out there. There'll be a little bit of a welcoming party out there, and we're supposed to talk to a couple of players. I think Jake Fromm will be available. I'm going to get your comments up here as usual because I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Hello, James Farah, Tony Jackson. It looks like Derek Kicklighter, Carlos Cardoza, and Tony Jackson might have been the first ones on here. Nola, thank you, Brandy Hennessy. Yeah, Crescent City. No, Nola. How could I forget Nola? Um, so the weather's kind of frightening here for the first few days. I mean, very warm, very comfortable, but a lot of rain, a lot of storms blowing through the area. It won't affect Georgia's practice preparations. They're going to be practicing at the Superdome. I think both teams are actually. They'll have a little bit different practice schedules. Georgia, of course, playing number 15 Texas, number 5 Georgia against number 15 Texas in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day at 8:45 p.m. Eastern time. So this thing, I won't be getting done at the Superdome till well after midnight. Mike Griffith is here. Brandon Adams and Connor Riley will be coming a little bit later. They'll be getting here over the weekend, I think. Last time I saw Griffith, he was headed to the treadmill. We all need to be heading there after the holidays, that's for sure. I know that's the truth for me. Thank you very much. Jill Cobb Burke says she had Marcos yesterday. It was so good, and that's no lie, guys. It's really really good. And as you know, you can always get two medium, two topping pizzas, 6.99, two cheeses, 6.99 each. It's an awesome deal. It's awesome pizza, and everybody at Dog Nation appreciates everything that Marcos Pizza does for us and for our readership. So I'm going to get to your questions. I'm sure you got a lot of them. Um, are there a lot of dog fans going? Jill Cobb Burke wants to know. I'm hearing we're going to be greatly outnumbered by the Longhorns. Yeah, that's the rumor. Now we'll see. I'm hearing it's going to be 2-1 Texas fans to Georgia fans. I hope that's not the case, but it could very well be the case. I understand it. Obviously, Georgia was just out here when they played LSU on October 13th. And Georgia fans, I mean, they covered up the Big Easy that week. I can attest to that because I was here and saw it. And they were all over Baton Rouge as well. In fact, an old buddy of mine said that was as many visiting fans. Glenn Gilbo, who covers LSU for Gannett News Service, said it was the most visiting fans he'd seen there in a number of years. Um, and I didn't see many. I've seen some already as we came into town from the airport. I saw a few Georgia fans look like they were walking toward the quarter. A couple at the out in front of a hotel. Um, One or two on my flight. I didn't notice a lot. Um, and of course, excuse me, we're 6 days out here, 6 7 days out, so a lot more people will be coming over the weekend. A lot of the folks that my wife and I know talked about getting in here Saturday and Sunday. um, I went on Twitter, gave a Twitter shout out today, and I heard from a lot of you guys who are coming. And of course, Georgia sold out its allotment very very quickly. um, so you'll at least have that representation here. But we'll see. Texas is excited to be in the Sugar Bowl. I don't know that Georgia is necessarily. Um, but I don't think that's necessarily a psychological advantage for the Texas Longhorns. I think I think Georgia's pretty determined to make a good showing here. Let's face it, this is a 9-4 Texas team. They're 11-2. Georgia, allegedly is disappointed that they didn't make the college football playoff. And if you are, then there's no sense in pouting and not playing well in a major bowl game. And look, this is still a major bowl game, y'all. There's a lot of stuff that these players and coaches are going to be doing, what they're going to be treated to. Obviously, New Orleans is a great town. They've been having the Sugar Bowl about forever. And Georgia's played in a lot. I think Georgia's played in this bowl more than it has in any other. This will be their 10th time in the Sugar Bowl. I think Georgia's played more than 50 bowls, but so at least a fifth of the time they've been coming here and done pretty well. 4-5, won 2 of the last 3 in this bowl game. What was the last one? Obviously won in 2008 against Hawaii. 41-10, and then lost 2 of the last 3. Beat Florida State in 2000, January 1st, 2003, the SEC champion team of Mark Richt's second year. 2006 lost to West Virginia. That was actually played in Atlanta due to Hurricane Katrina. And then Georgia defeated Hawaii 41-10 in 2008. That was the last time I was here to cover a Sugar Bowl, I do believe. So Georgia hadn't played Texas much at all either. Texas has a 3-1 advantage in games against Georgia, but as any Georgia fan will tell you, it's still 10-9 in Texas. Last time they met was 1984 Cotton Bowl, and Georgia won 10-9 in there. I'm sure there's a lot of questions you have. Darian Ford says he was in the building versus Hawaii. That was remember the lead up to that game? It was incredible. All the talk about Colt Brennan and the passing game, that Georgia hadn't experienced a passing game like they had. And last time I checked, I think there might have been 7 sacks. We'll find out this afternoon, see the questions coming in, and there's some video up there of Justin Fields and Jake Fromm throwing the football. Justin Fields supposed to be here. Hopefully we'll be able to find and determine that at the airport welcome. And I'm not sure that we're necessarily going to be able to sit there and see everybody who gets off the plane. But that was the plan. Thomas Cleveland Harris III, where is Seth Emerson? Seth Emerson is here somewhere, I'm sure. He works for The Athletic now. No updates at this point, Jake Payne, on the defensive coordinator. We talked to Kirby about that briefly when practices resumed for the bowl in Athens. He's not in a big hurry on this. Glenn Schumann and Dan Lanning are co-defensive coordinators for the bowl. Kirby's also coordinated a few defenses for bowl games, so he's got a hand in the defensive game plan for Texas, and that's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, there's some questions out there. Luke Ford made the trip based on some other published reports. I mean, I'm literally just getting back in the saddle. I hope you all had a great Christmas. I did. It was a busy one, selling one house and buying another. And of course, enjoying the holiday with my family. So we got to squeeze all that in. Now the boots are on the ground here in New Orleans, and you can expect a lot of stories on Dog Nation today and the coming days. Mike Griffith and I will be bringing you lots of information and live reports from out here. Brandy Hennessy says, I'm off of work till January 7th, 2019. Ain't no way I won't be at this game supporting my dogs. I'm really eager to find out, how many of you guys show up for this, because it's a little bit of a question mark as to how many Georgia fans. And this is really, and I'll write about this later today, my Towers take, but this is kind of a little bit of a different ground that Georgia is treading on for this bowl, because To this point, really going back to last season, it's just been one exciting step after another for the Georgia fans following this program under Kirby Smart. A little bit different feel this time. There's a little bit of disappointment in the air. Certainly, the way that SEC championship game ended, and Georgia fans have been very, very loyal, traveled great, and have done a great job of supporting and following the dogs. This might be the one time where there's not, Georgia might not necessarily have its crowd to depend on to lift them up in the in those tired times in the fourth quarter. Um, but hey, there's time to get here. I've seen tickets listed out there. If you guys want to help out the dogs and make it out here, tickets can be had at a reasonable price, I think, based on the market, and they are uh, they are expected to be available. Texas, is coming in great number, but they're not going to cover up this place. There's no way. It's an old bowl. It's it's a lot of local support here. Um, I don't know if you can see behind me. It's a little bit hard to see because of the lighting and everything, but the Superdome is back over my shoulder in the distance. It's blocked a little bit by some buildings. A lot of construction going on. I'm down by the river in the convention center, and there's a lot of construction going on down here, which is good for the city of New Orleans. They're getting all set. Um, Questions regarding Luke Ford, DeAndre Baker, and Deangelo Gibbs. Um, Kirby Smart addressed D'Angelo Gibbs last week. He's currently not with the team. He would not say if he was permanently dismissed or just temporarily dismissed, but D'Angelo Gibbs is on the wrong side of Kirby Smart and the coaching staff again, unfortunately. And it's a shame for that young man because I do know this about D'Angelo Gibbs. I do know that Georgia and its coaches are very, very high on him as a football player. Still believe that he has great, great, great upside as a football player. Dressed out for most of Georgia's games there toward the end, and was moving up the depth chart and getting ready to contribute some. And it's a shame that he hasn't been able to kind of do everything he's supposed to do. That's what I understand it is. It's just a responsibility deal. That's just me talking. I'm not. That's not anybody from Georgia saying that, but that's my understanding on it. And we'll see whether D'Angelo Gibbs makes it. DeAndre Baker was not at the last practice we were able to view in Athens. And that may or may not mean anything. We haven't had a chance to visit with Kirby. We'll ask him about it today at the airport and find out if there's any update on that. As everybody knows, there's a bit of a trend in college football for draft eligible, high draft um, stock players skipping bowl games for fear of injury that could possibly lower their professional value. DeAndre Baker has said on a couple of occasions that he plans to play in the Sugar Bowl. And, as we've seen from Coach Smart, he allowed Luke Ford to go home to Illinois. Luke Ford is here, as my understanding. There's been several published reports about that. And, that's a big deal. I mean, Luke Ford is going to be if Isaac Nauta decides to go pro, and, there's a lot of guys that are kind of in that consideration stage. Luke Ford would be your number 2 tight end next year behind Charlie Warner. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I doubt if Kirby will give us much of an update. These players themselves can give it an update if they've decided to stay. You get a lot of cryptic messages this time of year on Instagram and Twitter. I tend to not get real caught up in that. Riley Ridley had something out earlier this week on Instagram. I don't know if it means anything or not. We'll see. But Georgia has a half dozen or so underclassmen considering going pro. And then, of course, DeAndre Baker is a senior. I expect him to play because he said he was going to. And, I could certainly understand Kirby Smart allowing him to go home. He was back in Miami for a while, which we could all understand. He lives a long, long way from home. And um, the early part of these bowl practices, they always concentrate on the young guys to get them as much work as possible. Kirby said they were mixing it up, but there was a lot of evidence that the young guys were getting most of the work. That would include somebody like Justin Fields. Again, as I said, I've been a little bit out of the loop based on what I've seen and read. I have not seen a whole lot of new reports on that. Like Luke Ford, who's back with the team. Justin Fields remains in the transfer portal, which means he's free to talk to anybody he wants. And I'm sure there's a ton of people out there talking to him, and he can decide where he wants to go. Then there'll be the matter of the appeal as to whether he would get immediate eligibility or have to sit out. I think Kirby Smart has made it clear that he wants him to stay. The fact that Georgia signed two quarterbacks since this announcement tells me that he is fully prepared for Justin Fields to leave. But I don't think that necessarily means that Justin Fields is going to leave. Lest we forget, Kirby Smart is ever the recruiter, and that extends beyond going out to a junior or high school senior's living room and getting them to sign a national letter of intent. You remember after the 2016 season, he managed to talk Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Lorenzo Carter, and Davin Bellamy into coming back among some other players. I'm not 100% sure what all those guys' draft status was, but at least Lorenzo Carter and Sony Michel's was pretty substantial, I would imagine. And those guys did all end up getting drafted pretty early. Justin Fields, I'm sure, is getting similar interest when it comes to the transfer situation. I think a lot of it will depend on whether he can win an appeal. I think it's clear what the basis of his appeal will be. We're assuming that has been reported that he would be looking at a Title IX racial discrimination appeal. Whether that is the basis of it and whether it would be successful would remain to be seen. But there, will be a little bit of time to figure that out. And and if he does stay, then Georgia already has a bit of a numbers issue between the signing class it already has, the players it's already offered, the prospects it's already offered, whether they decide to come to Georgia or not. So there's a lot of stuff in the air right now beyond, just what's going to happen in the Georgia versus Texas Sugar Bowl game. But that's what we're here for. We're going to cover it like we do the college football playoffs or any other bowl. We're going to give it a lot of attention. I'm going to look at your comments now, and let me know if you have any questions. James Fulgham wants to know, will Ben Cleveland play? Yeah, he'll play. I mean, he's been playing. He hasn't played much on the offensive line, but he's continued to work on the punt team. He was in there on the dreaded 4th and 11 at the end of the SEC championship game. But he's still, even when we saw him run in one or two open practices in Athens, I mean, he's still limping. He's still hobbling around. So that was no small break. Anytime you have a fracture, especially if you're 6'6", 345 pounds, a fracture of the leg, and you play football, is probably not a good thing. But I would imagine he'd be available. Here's the facts, though, as they are. Georgia is getting good play on the offensive line without Ben Cleveland. Now, there's no question Ben Cleveland was a starter for a reason. But Georgia's gotten good play out there. Cade Mays, I think, is more ready to come back, and then the young freshman Trey has looked really, really good. And it's really amazing when you think about it. That's a third string. That's a third string guard, giving you absolutely great play in Trey Hill. So O-line's not the most of Georgia's concern, and I think that's definitely going to be an advantage for Georgia in this game against Texas. Georgia's running the football. I mean, I think we'll see Georgia run the football like never before. Adrian Clemente wants to know any Dog Nation gatherings in New Orleans. I know Brandon Adams is making his way out here. I would imagine we'll have something on Monday. I apologize, I don't know. I will get that information out to you right away. But I didn't check before we came on here. Like I said, I'm kind of blowing into town, and I'm about to blow out of here back to the airport to for the welcoming. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, Mark Cochran pointed out here our O line played lights out without many starters. You think about how well that O line played against Alabama with a lot of those guys out. That's pretty impressive. No news with Notori Johnson. Armand Rashad is asking about him. Good story I read by Anthony Dasher and Rivals over the holiday about his struggles with diabetes, and in that story, um, Notori talked to him at the SEC championship. Notori said that it was his idea to flip to defensive line. He just saw a path to the field better and feels like it's a better fit for him in college, while O line was a better fit for him in high school. We'll see how that works out. Georgia needs as much depth on the line as they possibly can. Um, let's see. Everybody play nice now on this on these comments about Justin Fields. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Um, look, in this day and age, I don't really begrudge Justin Fields. There's only one football. There's only one quarterback on the field most of the time, and I think Jake Fromm made it clear this season that guy needs to be him. Um, that could change between now and next season, but I think it's Georgia made it pretty clear that they're trying to um, create a role for Justin Fields, even if Jake Fromm is the main quarterback. And there's talk of red shirting and Jake Fromm, turning pro as a junior. None of that, none of that anybody knows for sure, because you just can't be sure of what Jake Fromm's draft status is going to look like. It depends on how he plays. Yeah, no, I started the conversation about it because I'm just, this is Marcinio asking you, say, well, you started it, Chip. I can't ignore the fact that Justin Fields is doing this. I can't ignore the fact that, it's a Title IX discrimination suit that he would use to file an appeal more than likely, though the Fields camp has not confirmed that. But that was reported in the originally USA Today report. And my point is just, whether he does that or not, we'll wait and see. But people need to play nice about it. What happened regarding the baseball player did happen. So nobody likes it. And least of all the guy who offended the offending party. He got kicked out because of it. So there's no reason in ducking our head in a hole, but you just have to be mature about it and see what happens. And these days, really, it's about getting that box checked for everybody that's seeking a transfer. You're just trying to find a way out. I'm trying to read got messages coming in several places. Yeah. So let's see. Any more questions here? Is Mel Tucker going to be there? Wayne Taylor wants to know. No, he's not. He's with his team now, which is the Colorado Buffaloes. So you're going to have Glenn Schumann and, as I mentioned earlier, Dan Lanning handled the defensive coordinator reins, game planning and getting in the call sheet and all that kind of stuff, though I'm sure Kirby Smart will be heavy-handed in his involvement. A lot of guesswork on what Kirby might do for a defensive coordinator. I'm among the people that thinks the secondary coach out at the Oakland Raiders would be a viable candidate, Derek Ansley, but I don't know whether he wants to leave the pros or not. And if he did that, you definitely have to probably give him the defensive coordinator title. Um, I don't think Kirby's too concerned about it. I think Kirby's a lot like Nick Saban, and Nick Saban took a chance on a very young Kirby Smart early on, who knew his system well, and you know Kirby could decide to do the same with Glenn Schumann and or Dan Lanning. Or what I don't expect to happen is for him to go outside and bring in a name defensive coordinator per se. I would expect him to stick with somebody who speaks Kirby, is the way I wrote about it the other day. Um, Robbie Cantrell wants to know, what am I hearing about the other junior? I don't even like really commenting on this. I mean, I'm hearing that Nada, may go and Riley really may go, but I really don't know, and it's all speculation until they file the paperwork, and they have the middle of January to do that. So I really try to give those guys a space. I mean, if they end up in front of me, I'm going to ask them. But most of the time they say they're still gathering information, or they don't know yet, or what have you. Guido and Beth Devlin say hire Schumann. Schumann's one of those guys. I mean, he's 28 years old, right? He's very young, but I think he definitely knows his stuff, and can do it. He would start right away if Fields went to Colorado. Gerald Harmon says, talking about Fields, yeah, he might. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that happen. Ohio State's the one that's getting the most tread, especially because of the Dwan Mathis development, the young man from Michigan who was committed to Ohio State and ended up coming to Georgia. He, by the way, as Mike Griffith reports on Dog Nation, did get his academics in order in order to get achieve early enrollment. So, shoot, he may be here in New Orleans. We'll find out today whether he is. Yes, John Hicks, Derek Ansley is being talked about, but he's being talked about by us in the media, not necessarily by Kirby. Kirby hasn't spoke to us in detail about that. Hello, Troy Sadowski. About time you got here. The Georgia tight end legend is here, and always very active with it. We appreciate it, Troy. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think Troy got the opportunity to play in the Sugar Bowl, so he thinks it's a big deal. Troy, you going to come out here and watch the game? We'd love to see you out here in the quad, as they say. What else we got? Eric Moody says Kirby is the real DC. He just needs an assistant, and that's definitely the narrative, and I believe it. I mean, you could see in any game when it got critical time, and they call the defense up. Usually, it was Kirby doing most of the talking and Mel standing to the side. But do not underestimate, Mel Tucker's abilities to put together a game plan and to translate, Kirby's. Yelling and screaming and translating that and getting the players to execute it. And look, I think one of the underplayed stories, and I guess it was up to me to play it up, is the job that Georgia's defense did against Tua Tagovailoa in the SEC championship game. Now, Jalen Hurts did what he did, but Tua was hurt a little bit, but I mean, he was hurt because of what Georgia was doing to him. And if he doesn't get hurt, Georgia probably wins that game. But Jalen Hurts came in, and we all know the rest of that. I have not seen him yet. Rode Williams wants to know, how does Xavier Truss look up close and personal? But look, hey, between Isaiah Wilson and Ben Cleveland, I mean, nobody can look any bigger to me than those guys look. So if he's bigger than those guys, that will be very, very impressive. Thank you, Troy. The Towers family did have a great Merry Christmas, and we're intending to have a Happy New Year, and we're excited to be back in the Crescent City. Before I forget, we're getting here toward the end. We're going to have to wrap it up. We're down to 1 minute, so get your questions in. But I do want to remind you that Towers Take Live is brought to you by Marco's Pizza. As I always tell you, it's America's #1 pizza company, where you can get fresh made dough on an original sauce recipe, 3 signature cheeses. I think I said 2 earlier. It's always 3. on every pizza, 2 medium, 2 topping pizzas for $6.99 a piece. And set up your profile at marcos.com online, and you can order your favorite pizza really fast, and they'll have it to you before this show goes off. Joey Shiver, DeAndre Walker is supposed to be okay. That's the word from Kirby Smart. I think he's been a little bit delicately handled in practice and everything else, but we understand that DeAndre is healthy or will be healthy for the bowl. Now, that's one to keep an eye on. You never know in this day and age. If he is banged up, he's going to play in the Senior Bowl. As Mike Griffith reported first. Some of these guys are thinking about their future. That's understandable. But as Deandre Baker said at the college football award ceremony, he plans on playing. And I think Georgia is very, very determined to play well against Texas and have a good showing and prove to the college football playoff selection committee that they missed on these guys. And based on the lines that I'm seeing, in the semifinals, which get played this weekend, you can't argue with maybe they didn't get the best teams in there, because if you look at the Vegas lines, you got double-digit lines on those games. Certainly, if Georgia was in there, and I don't know if Ohio State or Michigan was in there, you might not have double digits line on this. Drew Roman predicts that Fields is going to stay. Watch and see. I would not be surprised whatsoever about that. Look, this may be, the norm going forward, where these guys put their names into the transfer portal. And, I don't begrudge these guys doing that, okay? Because, look, for so long, the tilt of the field has favored, coaches and administrators in college football. I think players need as much leeway as they can possibly get. And, I know Kirby's doing everything he can to make his case for Justin Fields to remain. And whether he does or not, we'll have to wait and see. We're on his timeline. He'll let us know. Hopefully, Justin will talk to us when that time comes, and not just some, anonymous tweet or statement. I'd love a chance to hear from him again about that. Carl Carr says he hopes he stays. Chip, suppose this was all a recruiting stunt by Kirby just to flip Ohio State quarterback to Georgia. No, I mean, Kirby never stops recruiting, and I thought that was a deft move, as I reported, to go after that guy, because clearly Ohio State is making a heavy play. He wouldn't do that if Ohio State wasn't making a heavy play. That I can be sure of. So we got to wrap it up here. We're down to the last minute. If you got one more question, I'll try to answer it. But otherwise, like I said, be sure and have your Dog Nation app loaded up, your notifications on. After a little bite to eat here, I'm going to head out to the welcoming party for Georgia at the airport. We'll get some interviews out there. I know we're going to talk to Jake Fromm, a couple other guys. Me and Mike Griffith will both be there. So that, we'll put 2 or 3 stories going out. We'll hear from Kirby, get some of these questions answered you guys are asking about. James R. Hogg, I addressed the Gibbs thing earlier, but he is not with the team at the time. We don't know if he's permanently dismissed. We don't know if he traveled with the team, but the last time we talked to Kirby, he basically said he's off the team, at least temporarily, and we'll see whether he is able to get back or not. But his problem is a personal responsibility deal, as I understand it. Joel Moody says Dogs 42-24. Gary Shepard, I just addressed Gibbs' status. His status is out for the game. I don't think he's going to play. Thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out with me. Thank you to Marco's Pizza for sponsoring Towers Take Live on Facebook. Thanks for hanging out with me every week. There were a lot of you here. I hope you all had a great holiday. I hope you got some big New Year's plans. And I hope some of you guys will come out here and join me in the Big Easy, in the Crescent City, in Nolens, in NOLA. We will definitely be out here. Me and Griffith are here now. Brandon Adams, Connor Riley will be joining us later. and we'll have lots of coverage your way. So for all the guys back in the studio in Atlanta, for Mike Griffith, Brandon Adams, and everybody, thanks for hanging out with me for a minute. And I'm going to get out of here and go start writing some stories for you. All right. See you on the other side. Bye bye.